When the Neverborn supplement for Through the Breach came out, we got a lot of really interesting information about everyone's favorite scary monsters in Malifaux, but one of the most interesting things we got was this family tree. So let's go through this thing starting at the top. The Fae are the original inhabitants of Malifaux, and they come in a couple of different varieties. The Gigants, which is Euripides and his buddies, the Dryads who lived in the Knotwoods, and who were associated with the forest, and flora and fauna, the Keepers, who we don't know very much about, but seem to be associated with magic, the Awa, great builders and engineers, who developed technology and constructs, and who lived in what we now call the Badlands. The Dreaming Ones, who inhabited Malifaux City, scholars who studied the stars and had a connection to the mysterious realm of dreams. And finally the Sirens, merchants and storytellers who had a connection with the sea and inhabited a coastal city that can now be found underwater in the bayou. Next we have the Greater Powers, other creatures, which inhabited the land of ancient Malifaux. Cadmus, a creation of Titania herself, was a hive mind life form that the Fae Queen used to collect intelligence and spy all across the world. Zanakta was another creation of Titania's, who we don't know much about, but seemed to have been helping her to study the Grave Spirit and figure out how to combat the tyrants. Horomatangi was a great creature that was bound to the Tyrant Meridian and eventually found its way to Earth and terrorized the Maori people. After being defeated, it slumbered for hundreds of years until the Burning Man arrived, and it re-emerged, commanding the gibbering hordes and aligning itself with the cult of the Burning Man. Unique Fae seems to be a catch-all for any other particularly notable or powerful Fae that might inhabit the land. The Tyrants were all Fae, whose ambition drove them to try to pursue immortality. Eventually, the Fae rose up against them, and a great war was fought, where some of the Tyrants even turned on each other. After a great struggle, and with the help of the Nameless, all of the Tyrants were either imprisoned or exiled themselves, leaving the land in peace for hundreds of years. Now, many of them have returned, including Sharufe, who forms half of the Burning Man, December and Plague, who have made failed bids to return to power, and Witness and Meridian, who may be on the rise to power now. The Lesser Fae are a group of beings that existed in ancient Malifaux and still possess some level of intelligence. The Waldgeist, Boltungian, and Rougarou are all characters that we're familiar with and can be played in the game of Malifaux. The Kodal were a race of snake-like creatures that had an expansive civilization and may have shared a border with the Awa as they went into battle in the Tyrant War side by side with the Awa's constructs. The Cyclopses are a large race of creatures that live in the mountains and are now aligned with Euripides. The Sandworms, massive subterranean creatures that eat people but seem to possess some level of intelligence. The Ocean Dwellers, another catch-all term, which probably includes the Banished and the Gibbering Hordes. And finally the Malosaurus Rex, creatures that are aligned to Titania's Autumn Court and have re-emerged since the Queen has returned. Next we have the Tyrants' creations, such as the Nightmares, who we commonly see in the employ of the Dreamer, who still works closely with Lord Chompybits, also known as the Tyrant Nightmare. The Will-o'-the-Wisps and Bandersnatches, other terrible creatures that roam Malifaux, and we've had in the game for a while now. But last is the Tooth Fairies, a new addition to Through the Breach and From Nightmares, who are described as chubby creatures who feed on discarded children's teeth. The true Nephilim were a creation of the Tyrants, who looked very similar to humans, and soon allied with the Fae to fight their horrible creators. Then we have the native flora and fauna of Malifaux, which presumably is a group that incorporates all of the non-intelligent species, things that we would recognize on Earth as normal plants and animals. The Twisting refers to a period of time when the Grave Spirit's influence seeped out into the world and had a corrupting influence, causing mutations of all of the native creatures. At this point, the true Nephilim split into the Woes, the Mimics, and the Nephilim as we know them now. Unique Offshoots likely refers to other true Nephilim, who evolved into some sort of creature that doesn't have a known family tree, or other similar individuals. The Black Blood Ritual was a process that the Nephilim undertook when the tyrant Jazul continuously fed on the blood from their bodies to empower himself. They performed the ritual, turning their blood into black ichor that Shazul could no longer feed on. As a result of the Twisting and the Black Blood Ritual, the Nephilim turned from human-like to the creatures we know them as now, with their demon-like appearance, including wings, hooves, and horns. When a human is subjected to black blood for a sufficient period of time, their body will start to mutate, turning into what is known as a half-blood. They'll take on some Nephilim characteristics, but the effect is different in different individuals, so the results vary. In some cases, the humans are too weak to control the mutations, and as a result, they turn into what are known as blood wretches. Originally, if a human did this, they were shunned from society, but also not accepted by the Neverborn. But since Nekima has come to power, she's begun experimenting herself, and using the half-bloods as disposable minions. Many of the native flora and fauna were also mutated by the Twisting, and often the native species of Malifaux are described as horrible or more aggressive versions of animals that are found on Earth. Interestingly, the Gremlins are listed here, which suggests that they may have some common ancestors with other species, though there's been no indication of what that might be. And maybe one day we'll find out what the Gremlins look like before the Twisting. I hope Weird will continue to give us some more information on some of the things in this chart that we don't know much about, and maybe one day we'll even get an updated version of it when more information comes to light. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the Discord and the Patreon if you want to support the channel. Huge shout out to the extremely cool kids here on Patreon, the Steam Powered Scoundrels, Dogmatize, and Bicops Gladiator Games. Thanks for watching.